Hi everybody, this is part 2 of removing the front portion of Trouble's wiring loom. I know, since I released part 1, everyone's been eager to see part 2, so let's cut the faff and get straight into it. Part 2 is coming up. Okay, so for a quick recap, I spent the last video removing the part of Trouble's wiring loom which powers her front lights and the other accessories under her front wheel arches. It was far from plain sailing. I now just need to remove the remaining sections, which are the Eberspacher heater loom, the battery cable or starter motor loom, whichever you want to call it, and the dash loom. Thinking that I'd be pulling the Eberspacher loom back into the car to remove it, I started by removing the relays, as these were never going to fit down the tube that the loom runs through. Before disconnecting the wires, I spent some time trying to decide whether there was any difference between these two relays. I couldn't tell, so just decided they were the same and started pulling the bullet connectors out.
Oh, that's off.
One down, one to go.
So we have the blacks going into this top one. So I think they're actually exactly the same. Yeah, they're exactly the same. Cool.
With the relays off, I could now pull the wire through the tube into the cockpit. But no, both these wires were also stuck. The battery cable or starter motor cable wouldn't move, and nor would the Eberspacher loom. There are little loom retainers, metal strips welded to the body and bent around the loom to hold it in place. Although these were upstream, so to speak, of the part of the wire I was trying to pull, I thought this might be my problem, so I decided to open them up to free the wire. I kept slipping with the screwdriver, so decided to use my fingers instead. This wasn't the most comfortable approach, but it got the job done. With the clip undone, I tried pulling the looms through again, starting with the starter motor wire. I thought this would be the easiest to pull through, as it was just one big wire without any connectors on the end. It was a tight squeeze, but it came out.
That was my battery cable.
With that wire out, there was now much more room in the tube for the connectors of the Eberspacher loom to get through the tube. At least, I thought there would be.
This might actually come out the other way. We just removed the battery cable. It went down there and then up to that hole. And the other cable that's up there actually pulls out the other way. It goes down there, up here. This is it. So it's this cable here. So what we need to do is undo that cable clip. And it routes down there. It goes underneath the tachometer drive and the, what was that cable? That was the choke. And then down there, under that cable clip, and then up and under. So we're going to start taking that off.
These are more of those cable clamps I was just talking about. As you can see, it is just a thin strip of metal bent around the wire. Luckily, they are relatively easy to bend back. One down, one more to go. With both those cable clamps undone, now I just needed to unthread the wire past the tachometer cable and the choke cable and then through the tunnel. I could have made my life a lot easier if I took the tacho and choke cable clamps off, but I was already under the footwell without any tools, so I decided to persevere with threading them through. I eventually managed to unthread the wire. It was now completely free. I just had to pull it back through to the battery box at the front of the car. Right, that's 3 of the 4 or 5 front looms removed from Trouble. Now I just need to remove the loom from behind the dash, but first it's time for a coffee. It's Sunday. Yesterday we had a very productive day on the car. We managed to get the loom unstuck from the front wing.
I actually managed to get the front loom out. It's on the roof of the car at the moment. I also managed to take out the Uber Spasher loom that goes down the front of the car as well. What else did we do yesterday? My mum did a shit ton of scraping. So she's now scraped the driver's side, so the near side front wheel arch. She's done the offside rear wheel arch, and now she's about to start the near side rear wheel arch. So after that's done, pretty much all scraping on the car will be done. I've removed myself from that job because I hurt myself. Well, you can't even see it. There you go. That was what happened when scraper and hand met car. Oh, there's my mum. There's Chief Scraper. So yeah, scraping's nearly done. Today, I mean, it's not really a whole day. It's about 4 p.m. I've had pretty lazy. It's not. It's 2:30. I spent the morning in the gym. Today, what I really hope to do is just to remove the loom, get the loom out of the dash so that it's hanging it's just hanging down, if that makes any sense. I'm just trying to remove the loom so it's just in the car, so it's not still all tucked up behind all the dial holes and up behind the dash, because then that will give me access to things like getting the handbrake off, taking the fuse box off, much better access to steering column, etc. So yeah, that's my plan for this afternoon. It's going to be quite relaxed, I hope. I've just been sat in the car with my coffee. Look at my mug. Mug's cool, right? Full of Land Rovers. I need to get another one for Porsches. If anyone has any mug recommendations for Porsches, let me know. So yeah, cool. Let's see how this goes. My mum's going to be busy scraping, so in my videos you'll probably hear something that sounds a lot like and I will be getting myself tied up in knots with my loom. Right.
Coffee break over. Let's get this dash loom out. I started by bending back all the wire clamps. While I was fighting with these little clips, my mum was underneath the back of trouble scraping away. This really isn't an enviable job. In fact, it's a horrible job. Look at the state of my mum. She's absolutely covered in old undersill and road grime. Anyway, back to my wiring. With all the wire clips undone, I just needed to disconnect the wires which went to the door switches. These switched the interior lights when Trouble's doors were open. I know, pretty snazzy. Unfortunately though, I couldn't access the back of these switches to just disconnect the wire, so I had to remove the switches as well. They needed to eventually come off anyway, so this wasn't the end of the world. The driver's door switch was pretty easy to access. The switch was just clamped to the doorpost with a clamping nut, which wasn't particularly tight. Then, using a little metal hook, I managed to maneuver the switch into a position where I could disconnect the wire. The last thing to do was to get the wire and the bullet on the end of the wire through the little rubber hole cable grommet. These cable grommets are designed to both protect the cable from snagging on any sharp metal edges and to create a seal, so no wonder it was tight. Once sprayed with WD-40, it slid right out. With one door switched down, I then moved on to the other side, but because of where Trouble was parked in the garage, right up against the garage wall, this side wasn't so easy to access as I couldn't completely open the door. So, in an attempt to get better access, I decided to take this metal plate off the doorpost. I had no idea what I was going to find behind here. I anticipated the worst, but it actually wasn't anywhere near as rusty as I thought it was going to be. Even though it was all in pretty good shape behind here, unfortunately it didn't actually help improve access at all. I did eventually get the switch off, but because I couldn't completely open the door, the visibility of what I was doing was pretty crap. You actually couldn't see anything I was doing, so I didn't film it. Okay, so with the door switches off, I just had to untangle a jungle of wires. I've pretty bad OCD when it comes to things being neat and tidy, and this mess, let's be honest, it's a mess. That's what this is. This gives me pretty bad anxiety. Maybe that's how it was done from factory, but I can tell you now, that is not how I'll be putting them back in. In case any of you are wondering how on earth I'm going to make sure that the indicator switch works the indicators and the horn works the horn, etc. Well, I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to read the wiring diagram correctly. But if that fails, when I disconnected everything, I did this.
We then have a black with green going into a black with green stripes. We have a yellow going into a yellow. We have a black with white stripes going into a black with white. We have a red and white stripe going into a white with red stripes.
Even my camera decided this content was boring and started nodding off.
So that's a red and white going into a red and white.
Now I think about it though, the problem with this backup is that I've made a potentially fatal assumption that trouble was wired up correctly in the first place. Let's hope I can read those diagrams.
White stripe going into R, whatever R is. I'll just take that one. I don't have a smaller screwdriver. All of the cable clips under the dash are undone. I've had to undo a few more loom connectors that kind of connected different looms to each other, because the loom's not all in one piece. There's actually like several looms that join together that make up the loom. So yeah, there's a few bullet connectors I've undone. There's a bank of connectors here that I've undone. I've undone all of the cable clips, taken off a few relays, and the last thing I did was I took off the door switch wires which went to each door. So now I should be able to push the loom through the bulkhead into the car. Okay. That's the loom more or less through. Minus a few stragglers. Now those out. There's a load of greasy bits here. There you go. There she is. Spaghetti junction. Nice. Knows how I'm going to put it back in. That's a problem for future Lawrence. Not today. Cool. So what we have left, because obviously there's still bits of loom here, is pipe for my window squirters. Goes down there. Get that out. This is the speedo cable. That will come out when I'll come out the tunnel at some point. This is a very small loom that goes to my headlamps and my headlining. So that'll come out when I take the headlining out. Headlining is not yet out. Shock horror. And then, yeah, I don't know if I just said it or not, my steering column loom. So that will probably come out when I take the steering wheel off. There's a little push button there. So yeah, just
That must be
I'll
the
get a big
hooter.
nut on there. There is a hooter. I don't know how it works though. But there is a hooter. So yeah, those will come out then. But yeah, dash is empty, which is cool. Nice.
Okay, this time we are done with removing the front portion of Trouble's wiring loom. I don't know about you, but I'm amazed about how many sub-looms make up Trouble's wiring. I think off the top of my head, I can count like 6. So we had the front lights, the heater loom, we had the starter motor cable, the dash loom, the headlining loom, and then there's the rear loom, the one that does all of the rear lights and the engine. So that's 6, and that's not even all of them, because there's the fuel sender, there's the ones that were doing the interior lights on the doors, there's a brake light switch loom. I mean, there's tons, so many. I'd never thought that all of those looms would be like kind of separate and then join a main loom. I always thought it's just one. Every day's school day, I'm learning, maybe you've learned something. Anyway, we've removed a lot of Trouble's loom and I feel like I'm making really good progress. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please give it a like. If you've got any burning questions, get them in the comments and I'll try and answer them. And if you don't want to miss a moment of Trouble's restoration, don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next week. Thank you.
So my mum has been on scraping duties. She's done 3 of the 4-wheel arches and she's just moved on to the last one and she's found something. What have you found?
A little nest.
It's a little nest.
We got to keep it.
Look, what's in my seal? I'm going to have to turn my flash on, hang on. In there, decided that the seal was a nice place to make a house. Mr. Mouse.
Nice.
I wonder if he's still in there. Hello.
And if
So
he jumped
get on.
out... Yeah, shit. Jim said he'd done it.
Yeah. My dad said he'd done this one. By done, I think he might have looked at it.
I've fallen asleep.
Nice. I think it's time to call it a day. Don't you?